All right, welcome to your deep dive. And today we're getting stylish. We're going to be diving into how to talk about fashion trends in English. You wanted to level up your conversational skills. And honestly, who doesn't love to chat about clothes?
Absolutely. Fashion's a really rich topic. It's more than just like what we wear. It's how we express ourselves, connect with others, and even reflect, cultural shifts.
And we've got this podcast script, which, by the way, is all about fashion vocabulary, which is great. But I'm kind of wondering, is knowing all the words enough? How do you actually weave fashion into everyday conversation?
Yeah, that's where it gets interesting. Think of fashions like a language itself, one that's always evolving. Fluency isn't just about knowing the dictionary. You got to understand those nuances.
I like that. So it's not just about being able to label a trend. It's about understanding how it came about, what it says about society, even maybe predict what's next.
Exactly. Let's take denim jeans, for example. Once purely workwear, they became the symbol of rebellion, then a fashion staple, adopted globally. Talking about jeans can touch upon history, economics, even social movements.
Wow, I never thought about it that way. So to sound natural talking about fashion, we need a blend of vocab and cultural context.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the podcast script gives us some terms to get started. Let's take style, for example. It's deeper than just a look. Someone with a bohemian style isn't just wearing flowy clothes, They might be drawn to that free-spirited aesthetic, maybe even a certain lifestyle.
Okay, so if I'm chatting with someone and they tell me they love minimalist style, I can ask them something oh, does that extend to other parts of your life too? Is your home also super minimal?
Perfect. You're making a connection, showing you're genuinely interested. That's key for good conversation. And it's much more engaging than just saying, I like minimal style too.
Right. It shows you're actually thinking about what they're saying and not just waiting to jump in with your own opinion. This is already more interesting than I thought.
And this is really just the beginning. Think about statement pieces. Those can tell a story. Imagine someone at a party wearing a vintage brooch. Instead of just saying, nice accessory, you could ask them, is there a story behind that brooch? It looks like it has history.
Ooh, that's much better. They might tell you it was their grandmother's or that they found it at some cool vintage shop. Suddenly you've got a conversation going.
Exactly. Now let's pretend we're at that party and you want to compliment someone's outfit, but you don't want to be super basic. How would you go beyond just saying, you look good?
Let me see. If someone was wearing a bright color, I might say something like, that color is fantastic on you. It really brings out your energy. Or if they have a unique silhouette, maybe that outfit is so flattering, it really highlights your own. And then insert a positive physical feature, of course.
Excellent. You're being specific, descriptive, and focusing on the positive. That's way more impactful than just generic compliments.
This is way more nuanced than just memorizing vocab words, It's learning to actually read fashion as part of someone's personality, maybe even social commentary.
You're getting it. Now, imagine we overhear someone talking about a trend we're not really crazy about. How do we give our opinion without, being the fashion police?
Ooh, that's tricky. I think I would try to find something I do like about the trend, even if it's just a little detail, and highlight that. I'm not sure about trend on me, but I do love how it's incorporating positive detail these days.
That's a great approach. You're honest, but not negative, and you're still paying attention to the little details of the trend.
This is making me realize fashion talk can be a real minefield. Are there any common mistakes that we should avoid? Okay, so back to those conversational minefields. What are some fashion faux pas to watch out for? I really don't want to accidentally commit a style crime, with my words.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. You're right. There are definitely some things to be mindful of when you're talking about fashion, especially if you want to avoid, awkwardness or misunderstandings.
All right, so spill the tea. What should we avoid?
Well, one common mistake is, I call it jargon overload. It's easy to get caught up in all the fancy fashion terms we've been learning. But if you're talking to someone who isn't as familiar with them, it can be confusing. You might lose them completely.
Yeah, I can see that happening. It'd be like speaking a different language.
Exactly. So unless you're sure your conversation partner is a fellow fashion enthusiast, keep it simple, keep it relatable. You can always sprinkle in a few, technical terms, but don't go crazy with the fashion jargon.
Got it. I'll try to resist the urge to impress everyone with my huge vocabulary. So what else should we watch out for?
Another faux pas to avoid is being too critical. It's one thing to, like, express your personal preferences. It's another to constantly bash trends or be too harsh about what other people choose to wear.
Right, right. Like, I might not personally love the whole neon color trend, but I can appreciate that it's bold, and playful.
Exactly. Fashion is subjective. What one person loves, another might not. And remember, people often use their clothing to express, their personalities, their identities. So being overly critical can actually feel like a personal attack, even if you don't mean it that way.
So it's about being honest but respectful. Instead of saying, that outfit is awful, maybe say something like, that's a bold choice, but it's not really my style.
Perfect. You're acknowledging their choice, but you're not being negative. You're not dismissing them. And it also opens up the conversation. Maybe they'll share more about why they chose that outfit.
Wow, you've given me a lot to think about. It's
Yeah.
making me realize how important it is to be mindful of other people's feelings, when we're talking about fashion.
It really is. And, this all ties back to that idea of fashion as self-expression. We all want to feel confident and comfortable in our clothes, so let's create a space where people can experiment with their style and not worry about being judged.
That's such a good point. Like instead of focusing on what we don't like, let's celebrate the diversity and creativity in fashion. Speaking of diversity, are there any cultural considerations we should keep in mind?
Absolutely. Fashion and culture are often, deeply intertwined. What might be considered stylish or appropriate in one culture might be seen differently in another. So we got to be mindful of those differences and not make assumptions or generalizations.
That's a really important point. I've definitely been in situations where I've admired someone's outfit but didn't fully understand its cultural significance.
It happens. And, it's okay to be curious and ask questions about clothing or accessories you find interesting,
Yeah.
as long as you're doing it respectfully, with a genuine interest to learn.
So, like, if I see someone wearing a beautiful piece of jewelry and it's something I've never seen before, I could say something like, I love your necklace. Is there a story behind it?
Exactly. You're showing that you're interested in their culture and their personal style, and that opens the door for a real conversation.
This is making me realize how much I still have to learn. But that's okay, right? I mean, fashion's all about exploration and discovery.
Absolutely. And you know what? Even the most experienced fashionistas, they make mistakes sometimes. It's all part of the learning process.
Speaking of mistakes, what about those awkward moments? Like, what if I totally blank on a word or I say something that just comes out wrong? Those things happen in conversations, right?
Of course.
Yeah.
We're all human. Those little slip-ups happen. The key is to not let them, take over the whole conversation. Just acknowledge the mistake, maybe even laugh it off and move on.
So don't dwell on it. Just keep the conversation going.
Exactly. And, this advice applies to any conversation, not just fashion. Being able to laugh at yourself and move on from mistakes, that's a valuable skill in any social situation.
This has been so helpful. I feel like I'm actually getting a grasp on how to talk about fashion in English. But we've been so focused on conversation, I'm curious, how do I stay updated on the latest trends? Fashion is constantly changing, right?
It really is. And staying in the loop can be tough, but it's definitely doable. One of the best ways is to, immerse yourself in fashion media. Think magazines, blogs, social media, even documentaries.
Ooh, I love fashion documentaries. They give you that insider view of the industry,
They do. And they often explore the history and cultural context behind trends, which can really give you a deeper understanding of fashion.
So it's not just about seeing the clothes, it's about understanding the stories they tell.
Exactly. And another great way to stay ahead of the curve is to simply pay attention to what people are wearing around you, in your city, or even when you travel. Street style often reflects broader cultural trends and societal shifts.
It's like real-time trend spotting.
It is. And you might be surprised by how much you can learn about a place and its people just by observing their fashion choices.
This makes me want to go on a fashion-inspired adventure, but before I book that plane ticket, one more question. We've talked about staying up to date on trends, but is there a way to, predict what's going to be popular next season or even next year?
That's the million-dollar question. Fashion is unpredictable, that's for sure. But there are definitely clues and patterns we can look for to get a sense of what's coming.
Ooh, I love a good fashion forecast. So what should I be looking out for?
Well, one thing to remember is that fashion often works in cycles. Trends tend to come back around, sometimes with a modern twist. So paying attention to past trends can actually give you a glimpse into the future.
Like that whole 90s revival that's been happening.
Exactly. Another clue is to look at what emerging designers, those independent brands, what they're doing. They're often the ones pushing the boundaries and setting the stage for future trends.
So it's like spotting the rising stars of the fashion world. Are there any other, like, crystal balls we can use to predict future fashion?
Well, technology is playing a huge role in shaping the future of fashion. Keep an eye on advancements in textiles, manufacturing, digital design. Those innovations will likely influence how we design, produce, and even consume fashion in the years to come.
Wow, this is blowing my mind. It's like fashion is this intersection of art, culture, technology, and like so much more.
It is. And you know what's really fascinating is that the future of fashion isn't just about what we wear, but how we experience it, how we interact with it. Think about like virtual fashion, AI-powered style recommendations, or even clothing that adapts to your mood or the environment.
Okay, now you're really making me think. This is definitely something I want to explore further.
And that's the beauty of these deep dives. They spark curiosity, inspire new ideas, and leave you wanting to learn more.
I couldn't agree more. This has been such an incredible journey. I feel like I've unlocked a whole new level of understanding when it comes to fashion.
It's been my pleasure. And remember, the conversation doesn't end here. Keep exploring, keep learning, and keep expressing yourself through the amazing language of fashion.
I will. I definitely will. And to all our listeners out there, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of fashion. But wait, there's more. We've got one final part to this stylish journey, so stay tuned. And we're back for our final part of our fashion deep dive. I am so ready for more. We've talked about, vocabulary, cultural faux pas, even predicting the future of fashion. What else is there?
It's incredible, right? How much there is to unpack when it comes to fashion. And, as we've been exploring all these different facets of fashion, one thing that keeps coming back to me is that power of fashion to connect us.
Connect us. How so?
Well, think about it. Fashion, it's a language that everyone understands. Even if they don't, speak the same verbal language. It goes beyond cultural differences, age barriers, even geographical boundaries.
That's true. I can definitely think of times when I've, bonded with someone over a shared love for a certain style, even if we came from completely different backgrounds.
Exactly. And it's not just about connecting with people who are, similar to you. Fashion can also bridge those gaps between generations. Think about vintage fashion, or the way trends from past decades keep coming back. Those styles often bring up feelings of nostalgia and kind of create a shared history.
That actually reminds me of how my grandma and I both love 60s mod fashion.
Right.
And we have so much fun comparing, how we each style those pieces differently. It's a really great way to connect.
That's perfect. And what's even more powerful is how fashion can be used as this tool for, social change and activism.
Oh, for sure. We see it all the time. People using clothing and style to show their support for certain causes, challenging those norms, advocating for inclusivity.
Exactly. Think about the history of protest t-shirts, the rise of sustainable fashion brands, or even just individuals using their style to challenge gender stereotypes. It's amazing how fashion can really amplify those voices and bring attention to issues that matter.
Yeah, it's like fashion gives people a platform to wear their beliefs, literally. So it's much more than just looking good. It's about making a statement.
Exactly. And, as we kind of wrap up this deep dive, that's the message I want you to take away. Fashion is more than just, trends and labels. It's about storytelling. It's about expressing who you are, connecting with others who share those passions.
That's a great way to put it. Each outfit we put together is a chapter in our own personal style narrative. And when we connect with other people over fashion, it's like we're sharing those stories.
Exactly. So embrace your personal style, have fun experimenting, and don't be afraid to use fashion as that way to, connect with the world around you.
I love that. This has been such an insightful journey. I honestly feel so much more confident and informed about fashion, not just the vocabulary, but the deeper meaning behind it all.
It's been my pleasure.
And to all our listeners out there, thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into the world of fashion. Remember, stay curious, keep experimenting, and let your style tell your story. Until next time.